Happy Sunday, everyone. It's March 23rd. Just over 5 years ago, I almost took my life in just south of the Jacksonville area at the rest stop. Some of you have seen my post I made last night in New Smyrna Beach, kind of showing everything I've done in the last 5 years since my abusers, Justin and Mary and Serlick, had almost convinced me to take my life. 3 months before that happened, in January of 2020, Justin was living with the kids and I, 7 years after I divorced him, as a means of control and abuse and manipulation. We were in a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house in Fox Lake, Illinois, for almost a decade. I was in the process of buying that house right before he literally set off a bomb in my children and I's lives. He stopped paying his portion of the rent while I was on unemployment after my assignment at the Lake County Public Works Environmental Lab in Libertyville, Illinois, where I was a temporary scientist running water quality samples for a senior scientist that was in some additional training for some other labs. So I was running the solids lab, the pH lab, and the fluoride lab. And it was only a 6-week project. They wanted a scientist that was still in school, basically an internship. So after that 6 weeks, I was laid off in October 2019, right before the pandemic. So I was on unemployment in January 2020. And so Justin and Mary devised this plan to stop paying his portion of the rent in my home, which caused me to eventually fall behind in the children and I's rent, because my unemployment was only $350 every 2 weeks, in a $1,500 a month rental home. So my portion of the rent was $750 a month. So they devised this plan for Justin to stop paying his rent, and I have evidence of that in our Fifth Third joint bank account, where you can see that I was transferring my money and then he wasn't transferring his money. And eventually it got caught up to us in December of 2019, where he was served with a 5-day notice to vacate when I wasn't home, and then didn't tell me about it. So I had no clue that we were about to get evicted right as the pandemic was kicking off in January 2020. So I had shattered my wrist on New Year's Eve 2019, roller skating with my Girl Scouts. I was in a full cast. I needed to have a plate and 8 screws put in my wrist. It was a 4.5-hour reconstructive surgery on my wrist. I really did a number on my wrist when I fell roller skating that night. So that's how my 2020 started off, with a shattered left wrist and a lot of pain. Needed 2 surgeries to repair my wrist. And I'm grateful that it is healed to the point where I actually have full rotation. I was actually told that it was so severe I wouldn't have full function of my wrist ever again. But I'm grateful that I do indeed have full function of my wrist after all. But I want to give you guys an idea of how much Justin Serlick exploded children's lives. So our house was a Cape Cod, 9 Tweed Road in Fox Lake. It's just over 2,000 square feet. It was a big house. We had a full-size basement, a full first floor, and then a 3/4 full second floor, where my master bedroom was, very large master bedroom, and my son Tommy's bedroom was, right next to the staircase. And then there's like a mini loft/nook that you walk past in order to get to our bedrooms. So Justin, while I'm in a cast, can barely function physically. My wrist from my hand all the way to my elbow was in a cast. I couldn't pack anything. I couldn't move anything. And then, of course, God really tested me, gave me the European strain of COVID on my birthday, January 15th of 2020, because it was given to me by my daughter's best friend and mother, who went to Paris, France over winter break 2019. So they brought it back. Both girls were sick within 2 weeks. I have Hashimoto's autoimmune disorder, so I almost died of COVID in January 2022, while also in a cast for my wrist. But if you can imagine, 4-bedroom, 3-bath house, lived in for almost a full decade, 4 children, 2 adults living in that home. You can imagine there was a lot of property. I want to flip my camera around just to give you an idea of what is left of all of our property, the children and I's property, since Justin threw away or gave away 3/4 of our things in desperate attempt to drag the kids and I down to Florida against our will, basically making us homeless during a pandemic and helpless during a pandemic. So the only choice we would have is to move down here to Mary and Ira Serlick's house in Port Orange. That was their plan all along. And I was so sick and so injured that I didn't have any other choice. The pandemic was kicking off in Chicago, February, March of 2020. Housing came to a screeching halt. No one was able to move out. No one was able to move in. So the kids and I getting a home in Illinois was not going to happen. So this is children and I's property. Justin packed all of it like this. You can see like my magic bullet, all the pieces are just thrown in a milk crate. Our property is just thrown in bins. Kitchenware, this is pretty much garbage now. All of our camping equipment, everything was literally just thrown in a 14-foot pod and a 7-foot pod that I was paying for. It was in my name only. But this is how he was packing our stuff and just chucking it all in the pod, thinking that it was just going to be as simple as dragging the children and I down to Florida against our will. And when I said no, the rest of 2020 is what happened instead, because he didn't get his way. So when the moving company last July moved it from the storage unit that I'd been paying for since January 2020 in Round Lake Beach, Illinois, this room was actually floor to ceiling. This whole room was completely filled with the children and I's property that has been boxed up since January 2020 because of Justin Serlick, attempting to force us to move down here with him. And none of us wanted to. Like that's been like that since January 2020. This is literally a freaking time capsule, guys. This is a time capsule of my life exploded by Justin Serlick in January 2020. I don't even know how much money I've spent in storage at this point with absolutely no assistance from him. Probably upward of $40,000 between the storage, the pods, and then the $6,000 to move it down here. It is just utterly insane. But this has been boxed up. My entire life has been boxed up like this since January of 2020, and it is now March of 2025. So I've been slowly going through all of this stuff that he packed like this without a care in the world. Most of my stuff was destroyed. I've had to throw away most of my stuff because he didn't care about my stuff. He kept more of his stuff than he did of mine. I haven't even touched this box yet. So look how he packed my property. This is a Scentsy dish. He literally just threw all of my property from the living room into a box like this. This is my daughter Bianca, her Pinewood Derby car, what's left of it, in our Girl Scout troop 45731, where I was her Girl Scout leader. He literally just threw all of my property in boxes like this. While I'm helpless and very, very sick. I almost died of the original COVID strain. Between my shattered wrists and everything else, I don't know. Just those two events in January 2020, shattering my wrists and then getting COVID. I don't know how I'm still alive. But then March 22nd of 2020, he and Mary told me, literally bending over me, screaming at me to kill myself in front of my children. Well, Ira Serlick just stands there. This joke of a man is a volunteer police officer, citizen patrol with Port Orange PD. So he can throw his weight around down here in Florida and manipulate the court system. Of course, volunteer PD officers have connections, so that's how all of this has been able to happen. But basically what I've been doing is moving into the room, going through box after box, throwing all of Justin's crap away, because believe it or not, guys, he packed all of his property in with my property, making it so that there was no way for me to separate myself from him, even though he knew in 2020 I was done. I told him I did not want to live with him anymore. I told him I was done with the abuse. I was done with him abusing our children. So he intentionally mixed his property in with mine. So as I'm going through these boxes, I am coming across all of his property that he had in my house that has not been paying me or helping me to pay for. So I'm throwing it all away. It's 5 years of him not paying for me storing it for 5 years. So it's considered abandoned. I've had 2 different Florida attorneys tell me it's considered abandoned property, so I'm throwing it away. I'm not going to continue storing the abusive man that is withholding any and all contact with my children and I, while I hold on to his stuff. It's not happening. So I am going through box by box, throwing away his crap, throwing away my stuff that is damaged because of how he packed it, throwing away anything of my children's that was damaged because of how he packed it. I'm actually, this bin right here, this is all of Ariana's stuff from when she packed her room. So this is all her bin. This is her Girl Scout National Delegate box when she was a Girl Scout National Delegate in 2020. It's not even open. She was stolen from me, and it's not even open. So she was a national delegate, which is highly regarded. She was considered like a senator in the Girl Scout Parliament, but it wasn't even opened. She got that, and then she disappeared from my life. All 4 of my kids disappeared from my life. So welcome to my world. This is what I have been dealing with since this stuff has been moved down here in July of last year. Trying to figure out what I want to keep, what I don't. Like this right here, this is from my childhood. This first state quarter thing. My grandpa bought this for me. It was collecting every state quarter. So a lot of this stuff is from my childhood, that thank God I still have. My scrapbook that I had my Constitution test in that I shown. All my grandpa's drawings. Thank God those survived, because that's all I have left of my grandfather. He loved to draw me artwork. So thank God this survived, because I'm going to be framing this. This is literally all I have left of my grandfather that raised me. So I have my childhood stuff. This is from 1992 that he drew me. He used to draw me little artworks, so I'd find it on the kitchen table before I left for school. This is when I was running for student government. Yeah, I think I was in first grade, kindergarten. Vote for Heather. I was running for student government that young. All of my notes from middle school and high school, I kid you not, I literally kept all of my notes passed between my friends and I, because I cherished my friends. So thank God all of this survived, because this property has been shifted around multiple times since 2020 in a desperate attempt to hold on to every piece of my property I've ever had in my life, all of my children's property. 5 years of their lives were stolen from them, so the least I could do is hold on to their property all this time. But yeah, that is what Justin Serlick did to my children and I in January 2020, and I am still dealing with it to this day, literally. The whole side that I showed you right here, this is everything I still have to go through, so it is literally a living time capsule of my life exploding in January 2020. And what I'm doing is, as I go through things, I'm reboxing it and then shifting it to this side of the room. So I know that all of this has been gone through, like all of these bins right here, these yellow and black bins. This is all Scout camping gear. All 4 of these is all of my children and I's camping gear. Our tents, our sleeping bags, all of our camping equipment, our Dutch ovens, our pudgy pie makers, fishing equipment, fishing poles, tackle boxes. We were very, very involved with scouting and camping, and I'll be damned if I'm gonna let all of that money that I spent on my children for scouting go to waste. So I'm hoping eventually, when I get my babies back in my life, they will be grateful that I held on to all of this over the years, because I went through something pretty traumatic when I was 12 years old, and my mother packed up all of my stuff in boxes. Most of it got destroyed when I was 12. She threw me to my grandparents at 12 years old, threw all of my property in my grandparents' garage, and then disappeared from my life for 3 years. So I have my own childhood trauma that I desperately was trying to keep my children from experiencing. But thanks to Justin, Mary, and Ira Serlick, they experienced something very similar, but much, much worse, because of their manipulation and control and trying to get the kids and I dragged down here with Justin. So this is part of why I've been so busy dealing with this, because of Justin Serlick in January 2020. So this is my Sunday, 5-year anniversary of me almost killing myself because of them. I'm still here. I'm still very much alive. And now I am advocating for other domestic violence victims and family court corruption reform. Have a great Sunday, everyone. I'll see you on the flip side.